Morning. Welcome to this week's community table. This week, our guest is Evan Smoller, who is a 2017 graduate of UCLA, and he's here to share with us a bit about his story from UCLA and what he's doing currently. So, welcome, Evan. And if you wouldn't mind sharing a bit about your background and who you are and what you're doing right now.
Hi, my name's Evan. I um I started UCLA in 2014, in fall 2014, and I graduated summer 2017. Um, I'm from LA, from the Valley and San Fernando Valley. And so I was born and raised here. I went out of state actually my first year to University of Arizona and didn't really like it. And so then I uh, transferred to community college in LA. I went to mainly Pierce College and Valley College. And then I transferred to UCLA in 2014. I was in the transfer dorm when I first transferred, which I think was really helpful and really helped me transition into life at UCLA, and was a great way to connect with other people. Yeah.
Cool, cool. So in that movement from Arizona to community college to UCLA, what were some of the challenges of that pathway to higher education?
Um, I think already experiencing a 4 year was maybe a little helpful, um, kind of, but I feel like my first year at Arizona was like I was like completely lost, and so there was still like a big transition, but I had a taste of it, so it wasn't completely new, but definitely it was a new environment, new system, uh, a bigger school, um, but I think I'm sorry. What was your question one more time?
Well, what were the challenges from going to that first a 4 year, then back to community college, and then coming to UCLA? What were the helpful things, and what was really something that like transfer students might experience as a shock coming to UCLA from a CC specifically?
Yeah, definitely a bigger campus. A lot more people, a lot more classes. Community colleges are really commuter schools mostly. So it's a lot of people going in, taking the classes, and leaving. It's a lot harder to meet people and get engaged and get connected. And I feel like it's also sometimes harder to find resources. Um, at a community college. I didn't realize, I think, until my second semester that community college had clubs. And I saw this marquee and I was like, oh wow, there's like I see like six clubs on there, and then turns out there's a lot more than six clubs. There were like 30 or 40.
Mhm.
But I feel like it was harder to get connected and to find the resources. I think community college is also really easy to kind of get stuck in a rut and just uh kind of get in this cycle of like taking classes and not really sure where you're going. Uh, so once you kind of like find your path, it's really important to just like stick to it and stay laser focused. Um, I feel like at UCLA also is a quarter system, which was a big adjustment from semester, and the University of Arizona was also semester. So that was a big adjustment. That went by a lot more quickly. Um, but I think at UCLA, when it's bigger, so I think to some extent it's harder to navigate. It might be overwhelming at first,
Mhm.
especially with so many people and so many things going on. Um, Quarter system is fast paced and it can feel like there's a lot of pressure to focus on your studies, and it might feel like in order to kind of survive and get through it you have to focus 100% on that, which can really lead to burnout. So I think it's really um, at the same time though I feel like there are so many resources, and maybe it was because of when I first transferred, the day before transfer Bruin Day, there's various transfer specific programs that are set up. So the one I did was through Transfer Student Association, and they had this overnight um, event. And so we went in the morning. I think we checked in, and then we went on these like major specific tours from transfers that are already in those majors. They toured us around, gave us tips on what to experience, on what to look out for. And I think that was really helpful. And then having the overnight experience, getting to know other transfers, and then having that transition right into Burundi, I think was a really good experience. And I'm still like some of the closest friends I met at UCLA and are still in contact with, I met through that program. So I think that really helped me transition and have like a core group when I
Mhm,
went into UCLA to transfer. So I would suggest taking advantage of those. And there's different ones from different groups. Transfer
mhm,
Student Association was kind of for all transfers, but they have one
mhm,
specific to like, I think there's a Southeast Asian one.
mhm.
I think ASU runs their own program. So I think that was really helpful to have a group going into it and made UCLA feel like a smaller place and not so overwhelming.
Gotcha,
Yeah,
gotcha. Thank you, because I think that's helpful to think about those experiences that bring and shape you in your academic pursuits. So
yeah.
when you got to UCLA then and you started to find those communities, um, I know you were involved with ideas as an advocate and ally. Can you just share a little bit about how you found ideas and what that has been in terms of helping you understand your place in the world?
Yeah. Um, One more thing, actually, I forgot to mention. When I went to UCLA, I feel like at community college it might have been hard to find resources. I feel like at UCLA, and it might have been because of that transfer experience going to Burundi, that like resources were like at my fingertips. It felt like there was like almost an overwhelming amount of resources like reaching out to me. There was like a huge tabling event and everyone giving you flyers like join us, join us, join us. People in Bruin Walk wanting you to join. So I feel like everyone was like reaching out, and so it's just a matter of trying to like navigate that and kind of find the path and find like what niche kind of you fit into, what
Mhm,
path you wanted to take. But I feel like there were a lot of resources and a lot of people that were really open to helping. Um, and ideas. Um, I first started learning about like social justice in high school. Actually, we had this pretty unique program at our high school. In 11th grade, it was focused on social justice. So the way they usually structured their years was kind of split into quarters. So kind of emulated the UC system, and they um, did so we had a class a section on class. We had like a week and a half on LGBTQ issues, which wasn't nearly enough, but it was like a little peek at it. And then the big like meat and potatoes of the program was we had a whole quarter on race and a whole quarter on gender. And so that was like my first introduction into social justice, and that was like um I think that was like a big eye opener, and that one was like that's what really got me into social justice, and then I've just kind of continued since then. um and um when I went to Arizona, actually I was in a there was a social justice group through the Residence Hall Association, and so I was involved in that, and that kind of like furthered my ideas about social justice. And University of Arizona is right near the border. I think we're like 60 miles from the border in Tucson.
yeah.
And so I got involved. I was trying to find different clubs to get involved with, and I got involved in Amnesty International Club, and they did a lot of work along the border. We did like a press conference, press release about Amnesty International did this big report about human rights violations committed by the Border Patrol along the border. And so there were a lot of, and so that kind of, I guess, really got me started. And I hadn't really thought about immigrant uh, issues so much before, and undocumented issues. I had seen that on the news, and that was about it. I remember, I think the first person I met who I knew was undocumented was in high school. We were in like lifeguard training together, and he was like, he told me that he wasn't sure if he could get hired. He was going through lifeguard training and wasn't sure if he could get hired. And I was like, why is that? And he told me that he basically told me that he was undocumented. He said he hopped the border from Korea. And I was like, how does that make sense? And I was like totally lost and didn't get it at all. And he was like, yeah, I'm not sure if I can get hired. And I was like, oh, well, if you just do well in the program, I think they'll hire you. And he was like, yeah, I'm not sure if I can get hired. And I was like, oh, okay. And then it just totally did not click. And then coming to ideas, it was like a continuation of the social justice learning that I had done. My RA was actually in ideas. She was a project director. And so when I was starting to when I went to UCLA, when I was starting to transfer, the summer before I transferred, I went through like the whole list of all the clubs because I felt like it was hard to find a club at Arizona. So it was like, this time I'm going to find something. I'm going to really try to get involved. So I went through like the list of all like 1,000 clubs, and I narrowed it down to like 100. Then I'm like, I'm going to check out, I'm going to check out these 100 clubs. I think I went to maybe 10. But and ideas was on the list. And I was like, okay, like this seems interesting. Like I said, I heard about it. Like I've heard undocumented on the news, and I've heard about like issues along the border on the news, but I was like, had no idea anything about it. And so my RA was in it, and then somehow that came up in conversation, and I was like, wait, like I think I heard about that. Isn't that the undocumented student club? And she was like, yeah, we should go to a meeting. And so I was like, oh, okay. And so my first meeting was one great meeting to go to. We did a spider web, where you take the yarn and you pass it around, you make this big web, and it was like very personal, very deep, very emotional. And it was like, usually when I first meet people, we don't get at that level on the first meeting. So it was like a privilege to really like be let into the space and be trusted, and for people to open up and be that deep. And it was like, it felt like being part of a family, and I really liked that feeling. It was like, yeah, it was like being part of a family. And very welcoming. And then at the end of the meeting, they were like, okay, we're gonna go to Kent Wong's house. And I was like, we're going where? and they're like, Ken Wong. I was like, who's that? And they're like, oh, he's a professor. I was like, oh, we get to go to a professor's house too? We're going for dinner? Oh, this sounds fun. So I was like, so I went there and then met a lot of other people who even weren't at the meeting. And the meeting was big. The meeting was probably like, I don't know, there were probably like 30 people at least at this meeting. And then there was like a whole nother like wave of people that came to the house that hadn't been at the meeting. And it was like alumni. And I think there was someone from Ideas at Santa Barbara. And there was like current members that couldn't make it to the meeting. And it was like Ideas family, like an extended family. And it was like, it was really, really cool to like meet everyone. And everyone was just like so like Hamish and welcoming and open, and it was a really, really nice environment. And so I kept going to meetings and kept learning more about like the various issues and getting involved. And then I was volunteering with the workshops project. My RA was a project director, a workshops project director,
Mhm.
and then so I was volunteering with them and going on some of those and learning from those workshops they were giving more about the different issues. And then came to the end of the year, and she was like, "You should apply for a PD," and I was like, "Uh."
What?
That it seems like I'm here and that's up here, and I was like, that's one hell of a jump to go through. And so I um and so she said you should apply, and so I applied on a whim and I got accepted. And then um yeah
Hmm.
yeah, and so then that summer after was like a lot of learning and trying to like get up to speed on everything, preparing all our powerpoints, and uh yeah, it was like hit the ground running and hit the ground sprinting. and, and it was a lot to learn, but it was like being a PD was definitely one of the best experiences. Just going out and meeting different people. We did well. I didn't go. Kevin went. But did a workshop all the way up in Porterville in Central Valley.
Yeah,
We
wow.
went all the way down to Long Beach, east to San Bernardino, and west to Santa Monica. So we like really covered territory and talked to a lot of different people and got to spread, knowledge
Yeah,
all over. And a lot of those people we met, I think, then ended up coming to EEC and got people like hooked in that way.
great.
So yeah.
Yeah, so clearly that club was something that you didn't know a lot about, but you were welcomed in and were able to really engage and
Yeah.
learn together with folks, which I think is really an important part of our stories together, how we step into things. So it sounds to me like you've had this progression of interest in social justice and being exposed to new ways of thinking and engaging with realities other than the one you've grown up with. And so I'm just wondering if you could just spend a little time sharing with us now what you're doing now in terms of your work life and how that may have been influenced by this progression of your concern and commitment to engage with others beyond your own social circles or circumstances, and how maybe some of the learnings from these activist groups that you've been part of, how they help shape your thinking now.
um they've definitely been a foundation going forward and really sparked my interest in the work I want to continue doing. um right now I work for LA City Housing Department, and we when we're not in under a moratorium for evictions, we usually review eviction applications to make sure they're legal. Um, and so um, one of the things I was really interested in, so immigration is definitely one of my interests, but I'm also interested in like economic development and housing, and also and labor issues. And so I was
Mhm.
trying to apply to different jobs around those ideas. I was also a labor and workplace studies minor. Um, and that's what really got me into learning about labor issues and getting interested in that. And so um, I applied for this job. It's kind of a general position at the city. It exists in various departments, and the job is different in every department depending on what unit you're in, what department you're in. And so I happened to get this offer from the housing department and took it. And um, it has been like a really good opportunity to learn about housing law and learning about how evictions work and really seeing the eviction process from like start to finish, how that whole process works. And in order to make changes is really important to understand how the system works, and how to identify where those areas of improvement are.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think that my foundation in um, learning about these social justice issues and learning about the importance of housing and learning about the importance of people's rights and people understanding their rights has really led me to to this job, and trying to ensure that the evictions that are happening are legal.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because it's, it doesn't sound like a very fun job on some levels when you talk about eviction. I mean, and to review that, but you have now the experience in what the people behind this may look like,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
what the system needs to do to make it more, I don't want to say humane, but legal, and done in a way that um, honors the rights of people to have basic, affordable, decent housing, and not just have to settle for whatever is. Um, and so, what was that transition like from going from school to finding a job to now working full time?
Rough. um yeah, um the year after I graduated, I was didn't really get a chance to look for a job so much. I was like, let me I was living in an apartment, and then I was still working two of my student jobs. They let us continue after we graduated, which was really nice.
Mhm.
And so I was working those like crazy hours trying to trying to like pay rent and trying to um pay the bills.
Yep.
And um yeah, so though that was kind of insane. I They were meant to be like flexible part-time to student jobs, and I tried to turn them into like something that could be like sustainable. And so I remember sometimes I would like have a closing shift at like 1:30 in the morning, and then have to come back in for an opening shift at like 6 or 7 in the morning. And my
Wow.
apartment was in K-Town, an hour and 15 minutes each way by bus. And so I remember sometimes, like once it hit third week, the library's open 24/7. So sometimes I just slept in a study room in Powell instead of going back home.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a rough year. And then one roommate was gonna move back. He's from Denmark. He was gonna move back to Denmark, and then my roommate Kevin was going to grad school. So I figured, like, okay, maybe I'll just move home, and, and then that'll be a lot easier. And then it'll be easier to look for a job. So um, I was looking for something maybe in policy. I was really interested in.
Hmm.
And so I remember I went to an event that was led by a congresswoman, I think. Um, I think she was a state assembly member, something like that. And I asked one of her staffers about how to get involved in policy, and she said, in politics, it's about who you know, not what you know. So she said, I suggest getting a internship, and getting experience that way. So I ended up getting two internships. I got one at my state senator's office, um, and I also got one at a city council member, Marquise Harris Dawson, who represents South LA. And I've been interested in learning more about South LA and the various issues that were happening there, and the work that was being done. And I don't know if you can hear that airplane. And so that was the first one I got, and then I wanted to learn more about my local politics and local issues. So I got one for the local state senator, and I think that was really helpful, really eye opening. And I got to learn a lot more about how the city works, and about the issues happening in South LA, which is really important. Getting to know more about the community, um, and especially from an office that's very like community focused. He was the CEO of Community Foundation. Sorry, COCO, Community Coalition, and so learning from someone that has that background, and a lot of people in the office have like similar backgrounds and similar viewpoints, was a really I think good introduction to politics, and seeing um, um, what a political office can do in the face of those types of issues, and really trying to think uh, in an innovative way about what types of policies and programs can be implemented um, to mitigate some of the issues, and not just from a um, like a nonprofit or community organization or community organizing standpoint, which I had been more familiar with before, and that was a lot of my experience, but seeing how that can be done from like an institutional point of view, from government point of view, from policy point of view. And so that I think also helped shift me more towards getting into government work. Um, yeah, and help with that transition.
Okay, there I'm at. I think it's really important to know it wasn't just straight into a job that this is the ideal job, but it was thinking through what you needed to do, trying to make ends meet, doing what you had to do to get by, and
Yeah,
then thinking more about what do I need, where do I want to go. So then my last question, because I want to be mindful of your time and energy, is what's next on the playing field for Evan to look at. What are your goals or hopes for the next professional piece? Are you what are you considering, and what are you looking forward to?
um, that's a great question.
Well, maybe you need to think about it.
um, hmm. I'm thinking of maybe continuing still in government. I'm still interested in policy.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking of maybe trying to go for maybe a master's in either public policy or urban planning.
Hmm.
But I haven't decided yet. I think now I'm kind of leaning more towards urban planning. It seems, I still have to look into it more, but it seems like maybe it's more like versatile. You can do
Hmm.
more with it. And so just in case I decide maybe not to do policy in the future, I have more options.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I think I'm thinking maybe still government, but also still considering um, maybe after government doing some nonprofit or community organization stuff.
Hmm.
And I'm still I'm trying to get involved in the Undocumented Alumni Association, shameless plug, and doing more with them.
Hmm.
And also, I was considering, I was a labor studies minor, and so I was considering uh, maybe being an organizer, doing labor stuff in a community organization. And so I had an internship when I was at UCLA with Restaurant Opportunity Center, Los Angeles. And they are a worker center based in Koreatown, and they help low-wage restaurant workers. And so I interned with them for a long time, and then I've continued to volunteer, and so I'm planning to still continue with that and stay connected in those ways.
Great. Thanks, Evan. And so it sounds like you're still continuing to build out from, again, those are your interest in social justice, in finding ways to create communities that care for and about each other through a government which is not always seen as an organization that is set to encourage communities, especially as we look at our current governmental issues of controlling rather than enhancing and developing life together. And so it's just really lovely to see that you're continuing to move that forward without trying to just slap it into place, but thinking it through. And I think that's probably the wisdom of, you know, living the experience, trying things, and being open to changing it if it needs to be changed, and to also placing yourself in situations that aren't always comfortable or aren't the most convenient, you know, in a job that's not what the expected UCLA diploma will get you. You know, it doesn't have the prestige but it has value to help you guide your life and your profession. So I really just appreciate you taking this time and giving us this insight onto the whole process of being, you know, your story of your undergraduate life, going from a 4-year to a community to go back to UCLA to figure out where do you fit. And that is not easy for anybody, but certain groups will help you feel more welcome, and you can grow there in ways that the academy may not allow you. So, and yeah, so it's great to catch up with you. I appreciate your time. And I'll give you like a few minutes. If any last words you want to just shout, the shout outs, the hollers, you know, what you want to say to close this out?
Yeah, so on that last point that you said, like having experiences that maybe the academy doesn't give you, I think the experiences I had in the class were good, especially in my labor studies classes. Like I got the chance to take a class with Reverend Lawson, which is like a once in a lifetime opportunity. And doing like applied research. They have like a summer program where you can do an applied research project and learn about various workers in different sectors and the different labor issues affecting them. So I think that stuff was really important, but I'd say probably, well, for sure, the biggest, my biggest takeaway, my biggest experience is definitely being a PD in ideas. And I think the amount I learned from that about what my path forward will be, more than I think any class I've taken, and really helped shape like my perspectives on life, and really me a foundation going forward, and has been, I think, the most valuable experience I had at ULA. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Evan. And thanks for sticking with us despite the internet's trying to separate us. So just thanks again for your energy and patience, and really for sharing this story, because it's really critical to know what it looks like to be an ally and how we need to remain open to engaging beyond our own comfort zone. So thank you, and stay in touch, be well,